Okay, so today we're diving deep into acupressure for sciatica relief.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack how this ancient practice
hmm
views that really annoying pain that you get with sciatica
Right.
and explore some key points that you can actually use.
Yeah. And, even if you're totally new to traditional Chinese medicine,
hmm
don't worry at all.
Yeah,
We're going to make it really easy to understand and clear how it applies to sciatica.
exactly. So we all know sciatica, right?
Yeah.
That sharp radiating pain.
hmm
It can run from your lower back down through your hips, sometimes all the way down your leg.
Yeah. Yep.
Walking, sitting, even just trying to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
It can make life pretty miserable.
It can really impact your day-to-day. Yeah, for sure.
Totally.
Now, while Western medicine might focus on things like pinched nerves or muscle issues,
Okay.
traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM,
Yeah.
takes a different perspective.
That's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
TCM is all about getting to the root cause.
Absolutely.
Mm.
So TCM talks about qi, which is like your body's vital energy,
Okay.
and blood, which is not just the physical blood, but also its nourishing properties.
Okay.
Sciatica, in this view,
Mm.
suggests there's an imbalance in how these are flowing.
So it's not as simple as just one nerve being out of whack.
Right. It can be way more complex than that.
Okay.
TCM might consider factors like cold damp,
Okay.
which you can think of as stagnation in your system,
Gotcha.
or qi stagnation itself, where that energy is not moving freely.
Mm.
Sometimes it's even linked to imbalances in the liver and kidneys, which in TCM play a big role in overall energy flow
Interesting.
throughout the body. The main idea here is TCM aims to address what's causing the imbalance, not just mask the pain signals.
And that is where acupressure comes in.
Exactly.
So we're not just talking theory here. We're talking about actual points on the body you can work on to potentially find relief.
That's right. And it's amazing how specific these points are.
Yeah.
Of course, this is not a replacement for professional medical advice, but having this knowledge can be incredibly empowering.
Knowledge is power.
Yes, it is, for
Yep,
sure.
absolutely.
Okay, so let's get to the good stuff.
Yep. Let's do it.
What are some of the key acupressure points for sciatica?
Let's start with a point called BL22,
Okay.
also known as Sanjiaoshu.
Okay.
To find it, imagine drawing a line from your belly button straight back to your spine.
Mm-hmm.
BL22 is about 2 finger widths outward from that line on your lower back.
Okay, so kind of like where you might put your hands on your hips, but a bit higher up.
Precisely. Now, what's fascinating about this point is that in TCM, it's closely connected to how your body manages fluids.
Okay.
And often that lower back and hip pain that comes with sciatica,
Right.
sometimes it can be related to how your body's processing fluids.
So it's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Working on this one point could have these ripple effects on other areas.
Yes.
Helping with that deep ache.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Another crucial point is BL23 or Shenshu.
Okay.
This one sits at the same distance out from your spine as BL22, but just a touch lower down. So following that same line from the belly button, just a bit further down the back.
You got it. Now, BL23 is particularly helpful for folks dealing with chronic lower back and hip pain, which, as we've discussed, often goes hand in hand with sciatica.
Right.
In TCM, this point is all about supporting the kidneys, which are essential for a healthy lower back.
It's amazing how each point has this very specific purpose.
It is fascinating.
So we've talked about 2 points on the lower back. What about that shooting pain down the leg that so many people experience with sciatica?
Yeah,
Is there a point that can help with that?
you're exactly right that shooting pain is a huge part of sciatica.
Right.
And TCM actually has a specific approach for that kind of pain.
Okay.
The point we'd work with is called GB30 or Huantio,
Okay.
and it's located right on the buttock.
Mm.
It's especially helpful when that pain originates in the lower back and then travels down the leg.
Oh, so it's like this point intercepts that pain pathway.
Yeah, you could say that. It's one of the most commonly used acupressure points for sciatica because it really helps with that shooting pain.
That's fascinating.
Now, let's say the pain is deep in the glutes.
Okay.
That's where we might use BL36, also known as Cheng Fu.
Okay.
If you picture like the crease of your buttock,
Yeah.
BL36 is right in the middle of that crease.
So BL36 is for that deep aching pain that just seems to settle in the glutes.
Precisely.
Uh-huh.
It can help release tension and get the qi and blood flowing more smoothly through that whole glute area.
Gotcha.
And, these are just 4 of the many acupressure points that TCM uses for sciatica.
Right.
But it gives you a good taste of how targeted this approach can be.
It really does. And, it makes you realize TCM isn't just about acupuncture needles.
Right.
It's like a whole way of understanding the body.
It is a completely different perspective.
Yeah, and how to address those imbalances.
Absolutely.
I'm really intrigued by like those gentle stretches and brighter strokes you mentioned.
Yeah.
Can you give us some examples of what those might look like?
Of course.
Then practice.
One example is something called tendinomuscular techniques.
Okay.
These are hands-on techniques that focus on releasing tension in the muscles and tendons, and they're especially helpful for recent or acute pain.
So if someone's dealing with a recent flare-up of sciatica,
Exact.
these techniques might be really beneficial.
Yeah, they can be super helpful in those situations because it's really about addressing those immediate, often very tight and painful areas.
Okay.
Then there's the work that can be done with meridians.
Right, we touched on those earlier.
Exactly. These are like energy highways that run throughout your body,
Mm-hmm.
according to TCM.
So it's like the key and blood have their designated routes.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And so when we talk about meridian work, it can involve using acupressure points along those specific meridians, but also techniques that help to unblock or stimulate the flow of energy along those pathways.
So it's not just about like targeting a single point,
Right.
but almost influencing the whole energy system.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that TCM distinguishes between what are called primary meridians and distal meridians.
Okay.
You can think about it like the branches and the trunk of a tree.
Okay.
The distal meridians are like the branches reaching out to specific areas of the body.
Okay.
And these are often targeted for more intermittent or one-sided pain.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if your sciatica primarily flares up on your right side,
Right.
we might focus on distal meridians that run along that side of your body.
So a more targeted approach for like specific pain patterns.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Primary meridians, on the other hand, are like the trunk of the tree. They're the main energy channels that run the length of your body.
Right.
And TCM often focuses on these for chronic conditions where the imbalance is more deeply ingrained.
So if someone has been struggling with sciatica for years,
Right.
working with those primary meridians could be key.
It's about addressing that root cause at a deeper level rather than just managing the symptoms. It's like tending to the soil of a tree to help the entire tree thrive,
That's a great analogy.
instead of just pruning a few leaves here and there.
It's like we've been looking at this whole pain relief thing through a totally different lens now.
Yeah.
TCM is offering like a whole new perspective,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And like with this combo of acupressure and the tendinomuscular techniques
Yeah.
and focusing on those meridians,
Right.
PCM is painting a much bigger picture of how to address pain and get your body back in balance.
It really is. It highlights how TCM approaches health so holistically.
Yeah.
You see, it's about understanding the interconnectedness of like our physical, energetic, even our emotional selves.
Wow.
And while Western medicine might focus on isolating and treating specific symptoms,
Yeah.
TCM takes a much broader view, recognizing that our bodies are these complex systems where everything's interconnected.
It's not about just ditching one approach for the other.
Right.
It's about having all these options to explore. And you know what? It makes you think about how we often see pain relief as something that just like happens to us,
Yeah.
not something we can actually do something about.
Totally.
This has really opened my eyes to the possibilities.
I think that's a really important takeaway.
Yeah.
It can be so empowering to realize you have control over your own well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, always consult with healthcare professionals for diagnosis and treatment.
Always.
But just understanding these ancient practices can give you really valuable tools to manage your health.
Totally. And what I find really fascinating is that TCM doesn't just focus on the physical body.
Right.
It recognizes how connected our mind and body are.
Absolutely. TCM has been acknowledging and working with that connection for centuries.
That whole mind-body connection we hear so much about.
Exactly. For example, we know chronic stress or emotional tension can actually show up as physical pain in the body.
Oh, wow.
And then on the other hand, addressing physical pain can have these positive ripple effects on our mental and emotional well-being.
It's like that saying, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
I love that.
And TCM kind of gives us a path to deal with that space between pain and suffering with more awareness and more that we can control ourselves.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and that's what makes this conversation about acupressure and sciatica relief so much bigger than just these pressure points.
Right.
It's really an invitation to look at our health in this whole new way, acknowledging how interconnected our bodies are and the power we have to heal ourselves.
It really has been an incredible deep dive today.
It has.
From those specific acupressure points to the broader concepts of ki and meridians.
Right.
And that mind-body connection.
Absolutely.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface of TCM.
There's always so much more to explore, but if there's one thing I hope you take away from this deep dive,
Yeah,
it's that sense of curiosity and empowerment.
I love that.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, seek out knowledge, and get involved in your own healing journey.
Absolutely. So as we wrap things up, here's something to ponder. We've explored how acupressure looks at sciatica as an energy imbalance.
Right?
So how might this perspective change how you approach not just pain relief, but your overall wellness? Something to think about as you keep exploring your own health and well-being.
I love it.
That's it for this deep dive into acupressure for sciatica relief. But the conversation never ends, so keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll catch you next time for another fascinating deep dive.